So, last night, 60 Minutes, the bastion. Oh, well, they used to be a good journalistic outfit on CBS. And recently, though, their quality's dropped just a tad. Wouldn't you say so? Just a tad.
Oh, just slightly.
First of all, we had the story that Lara Logan did, where they talked to someone who told the truth about Benghazi.
Can you say Lara Logan again?
Lara Logan.
Yeah,
Lara.
you sound
I did a
like
little
Scott Brown all of a sudden.
Oh, there we go. So,
Lara Logan.
So it turned out that this guy who was telling his first-hand account of Benghazi was just lying. His story did not match up with what he told the U.S. government, and the truth came out. And it just so happened to be that he wrote a book for CBS's one of CBS's print outfits that was coming out.
Conservative imprint.
Yeah,
I forgot which one.
So that was just an interesting little flub there, I would say. And then just before Black Friday, they had that story where Amazon was planning to unveil delivery drones, which was interesting because there's no way these delivery drones are anywhere near being used practically. You will not be getting a drone delivery anytime soon. So it's just interesting that they chose to just take this Amazon-produced video and run with that. That was interesting.
From the terrible to the irrelevant, but both product placements.
Both product placements. Well, this is a product placement too.
Yes, exactly.
For the NSA.
There you go.
So basically, 60 Minutes decided that, according to them, the NSA wasn't doing such a good job with telling their side of the story with the Edward Snowden leaks. So they put together this piece, and it was presented by John Miller, who has an interesting background. Let 60 Minutes tell you up front.
No U.S. intelligence agency has ever been under the kind of pressure being faced by the National Security Agency after details of some of its most secret programs were leaked by contractor Edward Snowden. Perhaps because of that pressure, the agency gave 60 Minutes unprecedented access to NSA headquarters.
Pause it. They didn't just give 60 Minutes unprecedented access to their headquarters. They specifically approached 60 Minutes and asked them to do this story on them.
We were able to speak to employees who have never spoken publicly before. Full disclosure, I once worked in the office of the Director of National Intelligence, where I saw firsthand how secretly the NSA operates.
Wow.
Full disclosure. Don't take anything I'm about to say seriously.
Yeah, full disclosure. Yeah. I have a very specific side on this issue. Just unbelievable. It's also important to note that John Miller, according to a reliable source, the New York Post is reporting that 99.4% done deal that John Miller is going to be the top counterterrorism or intelligence role in the NYPD. So this guy is deep within the intelligence community. And here he is supposed to be doing this story on the Snowden leaks and the NSA for 60 Minutes. A journalistic story. The interview pretty much went as you would expect it. Let's hear part 2 on how John Miller describes Edward Snowden. Let's just take a listen.
This happened on your watch.
Talking to Keith Alexander.
A 20-something-year-old high school dropout contractor managed to walk out with, in essence, the crown jewels.
Oh, Edward Snowden is just a 20-something-year-old high school dropout. Well, let me tell you something about this 20-something-year-old high school dropout. He was literally weeks away from turning 30 when he leaked this material. Would you be hearing this if he was 30 when he leaked this material? I'm actually gonna say probably, because they're trying to discredit him here. But somehow him being young, which 29, 30 years old. I mean, we have arguments right now where people are saying, 26-year-old is a child under Obamacare. Oh, but a 29-year-old turning 30-year-old is some sort of kid when we're talking about his outlook on civil liberties. So this, and then high school dropout, trying to discredit him because he's a high school dropout. Like, that somehow means something. He was obviously qualified to work for the NSA. They go on later to actually say he cheated on his test. And that's how he got hired. Hold on. That's how he got hired. If he was smart enough to cheat on his test, if that's true, and fool the NSA into hiring him, I think being a high school dropout is really doesn't even matter. What were you going to say, Michael?
No, I was just going to say that in most of these places, including Silicon Valley and places like this, the point is performance and whether or not you can do something. They don't have the same type of credential obsession that many other places had. And if you read profiles of this, you would know that Edward Snowden is not the only person in these places who may or may not have either just a high school diploma or a high school equivalency.
Oh, it's a great point.
Totally irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, you have these startup like incubators.
Absolutely.
Paying people 18, 19 to not go to college, to drop out of college. Literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to not go to college and try to start some tech business.
I mean, if their point is that the NSA hires people who can't handle high school, I don't know what their point is. Are they trying to criticize the NSA? It's ridiculous, and it's also a disgusting thing to use against people.
Oh, for sure.
All right, go ahead.
So so basically the 60-minute story continues. General Keith Alexander, who's the NSA director, says how the NSA is defending our civil liberties and privacy, which, I mean, where's the laugh track here? Because that's basically what you play. I mean, come on now.
Laugh track not
Put
playing?
the 360 up.
360 is up.
That's all right. Well, whatever. It's
You
not
just
playing.
had a sand moment right there.
All right. Well, it's not playing.
No worries.
So anyway, story continues where on hearing about defending our civil liberties and privacy, Miller just lets him say that without even questioning, everything that they do. That goes directly against what he just said.
It's like having a sit down with the CEO of McDonald's and let him say that he produces a health food product.
We sell salad.
We sell health food.
We sell salad.
Yeah.
Again, the NSA talks about how Alexander, discussing the NSA, talks about how the NSA only collects phone metadata only phone metadata, which doesn't reveal all that much, he says. Even though that's not true, it tells you who you called, when you called them, your location when calling them, how many times you've called them. I mean, it's really simple to connect the dots when you have this information in bulk.
Well, and also that's exactly the point.
Yes.
They need to decide, is it pretty much nothing, in which case why do you need to do all of this drastic overreach to get it? Or is it something pretty substantial, which is obviously what it is, in which case it's not nothing. Make up your mind.
They also, Miller also neglects to mention the email metadata.
That's right.
Again, the Snowden attack continued with, on top of him having to cheat on the test and being a high school dropout, they talk about
By the way, completely unproven. I mean, that's just important to realize. That's pure speculation.
Yes.
I have not heard that reported really before.
Well, anyway, after discussing how private of a organization the NSA is and how they deal with all this secret information in there, they got to do all this stuff in privacy. It's very, very, very private information they're dealing with. They go on to mock Edward Snowden because apparently when he would work from home on his computer, he would put a hood over the computer and over his head so that his girlfriend or anyone at his house can't see what he was doing. Miller says how that's pretty strange. I mean, they just discussed how private and this information is and how it's top secret information they're dealing with and how there's serious ramifications if this information got into the wrong hands. And then they're mocking him for taking steps to make sure that this information was for his eyes only.
Well, I mean, obviously, if he didn't do it, then the narrative would be he was reckless with information in front of his girlfriend.
I mean, again,
we all
yes. It just went on and on and on. General Alexander discussed how there might have been a cyber attack that came from China, but again, there might have. There may or may not have happened. And how the NSA potentially saved us from this attack that may or may not have happened.
Well, but even that, the point being that is a much more totally legitimate thing for the NSA to be doing. What does that have to do, really, with a massive metadata surveillance program? That is exactly the type of thing they could do without bulk collection of people's electronic data.
For sure.
So that's just exactly the type of smoke that they'll put out to distract from the issue.
So, I mean, you might be wondering, okay, John Miller was presenting this information. He did all the interviews and everything. Perhaps, there were some producers that, were trying to work on making this a little bit less, NSA good, Snowden bad type of material here. But oddly enough, CBS posts this behind-the-scenes report titled, How Did 60 Minutes get into the NSA's headquarters to do this piece, which, again, I'd like to mention, the NSA specifically asked 60 Minutes, hey, can you do a piece on us and try to, make us look good because we're doing a terrible job at it. So they put this piece up, and they talk about how there was this crew of people called minders who were following around every single person in the 60 Minutes crew and were there for every single person in the 60 Minutes interviewed, and they would stop the interviews and tell them that they can't say that, change the subject, and how General Alexander would call timeouts and then look over to them and they would have to change the subject, which John Miller thought was pretty cool, actually. He was really, wow, this is top secret stuff.
I love calling timeouts when I'm hanging out with friends.
Yeah, this is great.
Timeout.
But going back to what I was saying about the producers, they also spoke to some of the producers of 60 Minutes. And they had some interesting things to say. So that this wasn't, all just one-sided. They had to have put someone who might have, been a little bit critical of what the NSA was doing. One of those producers have to be it.
Wasn't all softball.
It wasn't all softball. There had to have been some hard-hitting questions, and maybe they just didn't make it into the piece that we saw. Who knows? But let's listen to some of the producers and find out. This one is producer. Let's listen to that.
This is an agency that really is under the gun. I'm Ira Rosen, producer of the story, and Gabriel Schonder is co-producer of the story. They have basically allowed this kid who is now in Moscow with 1.7 million classified documents. They've allowed him to become the hero and they to become the villain.
Wow. And we have to change that. We have to reverse those roles here at 60 Minutes. Edward Snowden isn't a kid. And then he says Moscow, a little snicker. And then he says how, the media has been portraying this as, journalists have been portraying this as Edward Snowden is some hero, which they haven't. I don't know what he's been reading. And that the NSA is some villain. Well, maybe they've done some things to come across as villainous.
Indeed.
But
they do have a pretty awesome Star Trek room.
Yeah, let's continue.
We walked into a couple of rooms that just looked like they were completely out of Star Trek.
My favorite room was the Black Chamber.
These are the producers of 60 Minutes. Man, this looks like Star Trek. My favorite room was the Black Chamber. Whoa! They were doing a piece on a top secret government agency who's had material leaked by a contractor they were paying, who previously worked directly under them, who was worried about the way this agency was handling the privacy of Americans and foreigners even. And 60 Minutes was called in to do a piece by the NSA themselves. This access that I don't believe many, if any, have ever had before. And they decided to not push the envelope as any good journalists would do. And actually look into this. Let's see.
They didn't even bring an envelope.
They didn't even bring an envelope. Exactly.
Yeah, there was nothing.
There was no envelope. There was nothing.
Yeah.
They brought someone who previously worked for national intelligence, who has ties within the intelligence community, who obviously feels for the NSA and poor Keith General Alexander. And they put producers in there who, if they don't share these feelings explicitly, certainly think the NSA is doing something pretty cool.
Who has a rad black room.
Yeah, they had some cool black chamber room. They had a Star Trek, man.
60 Minutes has done us a favor.
Live long and prosper. It's unbelievable. This 60 Minutes used to do actual journalism. Before my time, I've read about it.
It was before. Yeah, I mean, I remember, in the 70s, before either of us were born, obviously, I wonder, could you imagine, like, covering the church committee hearings like this. You know, like there's some obnoxious senator who's exposing CIA assassination and surveillance plots. What a jerk. We got to hang out at CIA headquarters and look at some pretty awesome cigars they used to try to kill Castro.
It's absolutely amazing.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
Not even, I mean, this isn't even like...
And this isn't a one-off. This has been, growing. 60 Minutes' inability to actually do a story.
It might be time to retire.
Watching this was great television. Because that's what they were making it for. They were making a TV piece. They weren't doing any reporting here. They weren't doing any journalism. They weren't trying to find things out. They weren't trying to present both sides of the story. It was a fluff piece made for TV.
Fluff piece about the NSA. Ponder on that, folks.
Amazing, yes.
Oh, so,
Jeez.